Hello. Welcome back to the David Watson podcast. Today's episode is going to be in a shorter form and a longer form. I was talking to my friend Martin. He's been on a few times. We chat regularly on Instagram. And his wife pointed out something once that maybe him and I should focus on talking about his books. So, in this introduction, this is for the 2.5, 3 hour podcast where we just talk about everything, including his book. And there will be a shorter episode available where we talk for an hour about his newest book. I hope you enjoy it because I love talking to him. Hello. Weirdly, saying welcome to the David Watson podcast just doesn't seem appropriate as we chat every day on Instagram Messenger and send each other reels of all sorts of descriptions, some which are probably illegal in my country now, which is always adds to the interest. And then some are just funny. But yeah, you've had a hectic time. You've got another child on the way. You've moved house, and it's been busy for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, and I'm glad I could slot in some time myself because,
Yeah,
like you said, it's been pretty busy. Still teaching full time, high school teacher. Just moved, finished my second book, The Culling of Souls, and trying to work on a marketing campaign for that, which is difficult when there's a move and travel and
mm.
work doesn't stop. And now there's number two on the way, which has made unpacking a lot of fun because my wife isn't always feeling the best, and I have a toddler running around causing havoc. So
Yeah.
all the hats to wear for me.
But I was going to ask you actually, without sort of getting too much into your family life, but obviously I follow your wife on Instagram since we last spoke. She seems to make a lot of cookies, and they look good. She looks like she
Well,
makes
that's
some good cookies, man.
yeah, and that's actually it's funny because I'm not a sweets person.
Yeah.
She'll ask me about dessert. She'll ask me like, we'll go out and do you want to go? I'm not a sweets person at all. I have a soft spot for chocolate chip cookies, and
And she
she
makes
makes
them.
some fantastic
I've
chocolate chip
seen them,
cookies.
man.
So I've actually begged her for these. Of like, can you like, why are there no cookies? Like having a cookie and milk before bed.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand it makes me seem probably like a toddler myself, but it's they're so good
I
that
you
I give up my savory meat loving teeth for sweet for a little bit.
Well, you say that makes you sound like a kid. If my friend Duncan and Matthew are here, and that you ask them what's my favourite drink, because they'll know for definite what my favourite drink is, and they will tell you, and it doesn't matter where I am. Vanilla milkshake. I can be
Huh.
in a bar, in a cocktail bar, I don't give a shit. If I find out they're serving vanilla milkshakes, what do you want? There'll be like 4 beers lined up. Milkshake, please. Vanilla milkshake. It's my favourite drink,
You're not
and I'll have
you're
it.
not throwing a little rum spike in there at all. It's
No,
just
I
straight
won't.
vanilla
I
milkshake.
won't let you ruin it. I was in Portugal once, and I sent it back because they'd added ice. I was like, I'm not drinking it. That's shit. I want a proper milkshake, or not at all. I was on holiday in Portugal.
Oh man.
Yeah, but what can you say? Do you mean you like milk and cookies? Yeah, man, I get that.
Yeah.
Milkshake is my favourite drink. And I rarely have it. It's not like I have it often, but if I go somewhere and I see, because I won't make it at home because that defeats the purpose of having a milkshake. It's very much a kind of old school diner experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like definitely with milkshakes too. But anything that I think that can kind of to trigger that old kid in you
Oh, yeah.
will always have something. And it's like you said, you could be at a cocktail bar and it hits, and
Yeah.
you see that you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
maybe.
And then
Um,
and something they never used to do when I was a kid, but they do now, is they do vanilla milkshake, but salted caramel vanilla milkshakes. And I'm like, oh my God. The first time I tried one of them about 5 years ago, I was just like, damn. And that's salted caramel vanilla milkshakes. I'd kill something.
Broadening your horizons there with some caramel.
That's salted caramel. It has to be salted caramel.
Yeah.
It has to be that, that nice little scientific blend that sends the taste buds crazy.
That salty and sweet, they go together.
It's phenomenal. And but yeah, so I get it, milk and cookies. Like I said, it's just I'm all in for that. I understand that exactly where that comes from. It's
Yeah,
good.
she's been, especially now that we moved in, she's been baking more, that we have everything or most of the things set up. And it was actually my dad was over, and she gave them a bag of cookies. And now when he's back, whenever he comes over, he's like, "Oh, do you have any cookies?" So it's not just me. We gave some to our neighbor as we moved in. They came over and said hi, dropped off a card, and we
Yeah,
returned the favor by here's some cookies for you. And I got a text later on like, "They're so good, thank
nice,
you." So yeah,
nice man.
it's. I mean, I don't think we're gonna open up a cookie shop anytime soon, but
Mm.
it's great to have some go-to dessert that. I mean, God knows, with one kid now, another on the way, we'll probably be having some potlucks or something down the road where we have to show up with something. So
But the
saying
thing
here's
is,
some
though,
cookies.
I you say that I always remember years ago there used to be. It's not there now, but in Salisbury there's a chocolate shop. There used to be a chocolate shop, and I don't know how I discovered it. I think I went there with a friend. I think it was a friend Haley. We were having coffee, and anyway, at the counter they had these handmade chocolates, just individual chocolates, and there's probably about 200. So it's like, so everything from truffles to dark chocolate to milk chocolate. And I discovered that girls go nuts for these chocolates because you could buy for £10, you could get 6 individual chocolates in a little gold cardboard box, and you'd wrap a ribbon around it. And he was as camp as you like, and he loved a bit of ribbon tying, and
Hmm.
and he'd wrap it in gold wrapper and all of this. And that £10 box, every time I gave that to a girl, like just a friend, acquaintance, birthday, anniversary, just to pick you up because you're having a rough week or whatever, I tell you what, that got me out of more trouble than anything in my life. That was so appreciated because it's just that gesture of something sweet, something to treat, and individually picked, and that would be those boxes of cookies.
Yeah, it's it's funny how quick it is to get into trouble with your significant other
Yeah,
sometimes, and also how easy it is to make peace. And I
but
think that's one of the things that a lot of people they screw up with. Whether it's, I mean, whoever's right or wrong,
yeah,
it's here's my offering of like, I want this to be right.
yeah,
And for
that's
you,
it
it's
in a
like, here's a
nutshell.
little chocolate.
Yeah, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I want this to be right. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care about the who's the right or the wrong or how it started.
yeah,
Let's put this right. But I'd give it.
yeah.
I'd hand it to somebody on a birthday or something like that, and they'd just be like. And I remember this. It might have even been Haley, and I bought it for her. And I was just like, she's like, I can have one of these every day for a week. And it was just like she was made up. If it wasn't Haley, I apologise to whoever I did give it to because I've forgotten all about you. um,
Well,
yeah, that's life.
that's her chocolate chip cookie. That's her vanilla milkshake.
Yeah, exactly
So,
that. That's exactly it. But it was just I can have one of these a day for a week, and it was just that there was it become this whole thing that every day for a
mm,
week now I can open up and have a different chocolate because, and of course it sounds really simple, but people won't buy that level of luxury for themselves. They can't justify it.
mhm.
But when it's gifted to them,
Yeah, and I would highly relate to that. I mean, there's so many things that I feel like, one, with our old house, then moving into this house, and just I mean, a lot of stuff with self-publishing my book.
yeah,
There's things that's like, I kind of need this. Do I want to spend the money on it, even though it's like it's for me, whether it's for a professional thing, whether it's for
mm,
my house, whether it's whatever. I, I hesitate to spend on myself
yeah,
because it's not me saying like, oh, I'm just such a great giver, I'd rather spend on someone else. It's the part of it, I think, is a very deep male seated thing of like, am I worthy of spending on myself? And I think men have that overwhelmingly of like, I need to either get to that kind of FU level of wealth where I can just throw money away, or it's, what have I done to deserve something? I see that especially with the boys that I teach. and the boys I coached years and years ago of like, why am I worthy of praise? Why am I worthy of
Yeah.
accolades? And I think an extension of that is like, why would I spend on myself?
I'm pretty good at spending
Uh,
my money on myself. I'm terrible. I spend too
okay.
much money on myself. I have two cars. I have an office. I have a garden gym,
Hmm.
and I don't need two cars. But one of them is
You're also bachelor life though,
yeah.
which
I'm single and
does
I live with my mum. I moved
changes
in
things.
like
Yeah.
like I was saying before we started recording. When I
Hmm.
nearly went to prison, I didn't go to prison, but the result of that is I ended up bankrupt. So
Hmm.
when I was sort of 30 years old, I was made bankrupt, and I actually had nowhere to live because I couldn't pay any rent. My bank accounts had
Yeah.
been closed because I got into financial fraud, basically, and it was.
We're airing all the dirty laundry now.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I've spoken about it on podcasts before. If it's certainly no secret is
Yeah.
and yeah, and so I had no bank accounts, and in the UK, we have this interesting law in the UK that so if you can imagine, I don't have any bank accounts. I'm just getting debts now because I can't pay anything.
Hmm.
I physically can't pay people because I don't have a bank account. I can't.
Hmm.
I can't get a job because I don't have a bank account. So it's just like it's a vicious circle. So
Yeah.
we have a thing in
Yeah.
the UK called Citizens Advice Bureau, and I went to see. I think they exist, but not in the capacity they used to be. You used to actually go to an office, and it was just free citizens advice. But they were very clued up on the law and everything to do with everything. They were literally the library of how you can live and what's available to you. And I was talking to them. They said, "You go bankrupt." They said, "If you go bankrupt, any high street bank in the United Kingdom is forced to give you a bank account. You have to have what you would the equivalent of a checking account,
Hmm.
where you have to be able
Hmm.
to pay your bills. You have to be able to so you can earn a living, and you have to be able to withdraw
Hmm.
money. They just won't give you credit. They won't give you an
Hmm.
overdraft, but as soon as you're declared bankrupt, no, but you can just walk into any bank account and ask for an application form for a bank account, and they have to give it to you by law. So the very people that
Huh.
shut all my bank accounts down using the law were then forced to give
Hmm.
me a bank account because of the law, and that's how I ended up bankrupt. But because of that, at this period of time, I couldn't pay bills. I ended up homeless, homeless to the extent
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
my mum's like, "Well, move in." Oh, fantastic, great.
Hmm.
And then, because like you say, I'm single, don't have children. It
Yeah.
took a while to get, like a proper tax-paying job and stuff like that, and get back on my feet. And then I was just like, well, this is why would I now move out? Because
Hmm.
but it's a weird way that life can unfold. Because at 22, I'd bought my own house with my ex-girlfriend. We
Yeah.
were together, and then we split up. And then you like go your separate ways, and it's like, well, what do I do now? Because we had to sell the house and all of that. So I ended up
Hmm.
moving to London, and and this kind of so I did everything in reverse.
Yeah. It makes for a storied life though, and it's
It's interesting. I mean, I left home at 18,
mhm.
bought my first house at 22 with my then girlfriend. We then broke up a couple of years later,
Mhm.
and weirdly, I kind of bought it and sold it before the housing market in the UK took off. So it's just like I bought a 2-bedroomed house around about 96, 97 for like £58,000,
Okay.
and then sold it like 2 years later for like 68,000. And now
Yeah.
that same house 25 years later is worth about 300,000.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, back then it was only worth about twice our combined annual income.
Yeah.
And now it's worth
That
about 10 times what our combined annual income would be.
Yeah, and that's to me is just the crazy thing when you start looking at houses. And we're in a decent market over here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not California or New York, where having lived both of those
Mm.
places, it's you really get a feel for like, holy, like how does anyone afford this? Even with like decent generational wealth, like you have to really like stretch and stretch and stretch to afford anything. And it's amongst all the other things are kind of coming to a head in the world. I think that's one of those issues that whether it's wages are going to have to skyrocket or what. It's there's houses are far too expensive for people to get into.
Mm.
And I personally, I don't think this 50-year mortgage thing that's being floated around over here is a great idea because it's just essentially indentured servitude to the banks.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
I mean, right now on a 30-year mortgage, you pay it's like two times whatever the house is worth by the time you pay it off. So I can only imagine what 50 years of that would be. And
It's
at
really,
this point, we've become serfs.
yeah. Well, it's really strange because people talk about today's system and say how easy it was, like for the generation older than me and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But when I bought my house, you had to have a minimum of a 10% deposit. Minimum. You
Hmm.
were only allowed to borrow 3.5 times your wage plus the wage of the next lowest earner if there was two of you.
Hmm.
So they would take
Hmm.
3.5 times the highest earner and then the other person, and with a minimum of a 10% deposit.
Hmm.
So that was before fees or anything like that came in. You had to,
Yeah.
so you effectively needed something closer to a 15% deposit because the fees would be on
Hmm.
top, and if you didn't have the fees, you
Yeah.
couldn't pay because you had to have everything up front. And interest
Hmm.
rates were astronomically high. They were like 12-13% or something.
Yeah.
So I remember, I don't remember exactly what the mortgage was, but I remember the mortgage with the interest and everything associated to it wiped out an entire wage for one of us, our monthly annual wage. Sorry,
Yeah.
our monthly wage. So I can't
Hmm.
remember, we earned roughly the same every month. And that so it's just like, right, we're now just surviving on one salary for everything else, bills,
Yeah.
car, and everything.
Yeah.
You know. And
Yeah.
so when
And
people, the prices were lower, but the way the costs were put in, it was much higher.
was seems like see, that was what 90s.
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like that was the time. It's the late 80s, early 90s when things started taking off, especially interest rates. Um, but there's that. It's there's a lot of boomer hatred online you can find for the. It's like, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and I think it's more that generation of people who bought their houses in the 70s and 60s
yeah, yeah.
that your house really was like $15,000, and I mean, yeah, you're not making 60K a year, but you're making essentially the salary of your job equates to 1 year's wages for what the house was costing back in
Yeah, yeah,
50s, 60s, which
it,
that sort of thing is
yeah.
mind-boggling for a lot of people.
But I think as well, people forget that interest rates were like, I'm sure they were like 12 or 13%, even
Oh
as
yeah,
high as like
yeah,
16% at
yeah,
times. And
yeah.
I don't know what America was like, but in the UK, you couldn't get a credit card below the age of 25. You couldn't get a personal loan
Okay.
under the age of
Yeah.
25 unless it was guaranteed by somebody. So you had
Hmm.
to get somebody who would, over the age of 25, if you wanted a loan, who would sign for that to say they'd pay it if you defaulted. So it
Hmm.
was, whereas now at 18, they're giving you 0% loans and zero interest credit cards, buy now, pay later. None of that was available when I
Yeah.
was 18. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it was more difficult or it was just different. So if we wanted something, we had to save for it first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas now they can just
And
give it
I
to
think
you.
that well, I think there's a bit of a predatory thing now where it's like you said, then it really was the mindset of if I live with my parents for a year and I save up for a year, I can almost buy a house outright. Like, yeah, the interest rates are more, but the house cost itself is so much lower that I can afford this. Whereas now I mean, it's interesting that they've moved things towards these loans where oh, you only need 1% down, which is very enticing, but then
Yeah.
you're even if you have a low
Mm.
interest rate, if your house is $500,000, you're you're paying like 80%, 90% interest on every single payment. So you're not actually paying for the house hardly.
But
And that's it's saving up for it can only do so much now when you're still
when
hitting those
when I was
uh
when I was doing a lot of coaching, I hardly do any now, but when I was doing a lot of coaching, and I'd talk to people about finances, and I'd always say to them, like,
mhm,
whether you're living at home, whether you're living with a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, cut out all subscriptions, just and if you don't need to live on it, you don't need to have it. And this is like no holidays, no nothing, second job, everything. And those that did it were easily fine. Not when I say easily, there was a huge adjustment, but they were looking. But once they'd become really frugal, that people were saving 20 grand a year, just putting it away, because they were just everything. They just once they got into the mindset, but the mindset was we're only doing this for 2 years, 3 years, for whatever the goal is. And people were putting down £100,000 deposits on a house. But it was 2 or 3 years, second jobs. It's like, right, I'm going to work weekends, you're going to work nights. We just have this end goal. And they're busting themselves, saving every penny. And, right, we don't need Netflix, we don't need Sky, I don't need an expensive phone, we're not doing new clothes. And we're not doing Valentine's, we're not doing birthdays, we're not doing Christmas. And when people get really serious about it, they surprise themselves on what they can save.
Oh yeah.
And with that one goal, we're going to put a deposit down on the house. And some of them, I remember somebody, their goal was like, we were just going to get to, once we get to 20 grand. But but they got kind of quite fanatical about it and realised, well, we've achieved 20 grand. They thought it was going to take them like 2 years, and they achieved it in like 9 months, because they both got jobs, second jobs and stuff. And they were like, well, then what could we do if we did this for 2 or 3 years like we'd originally planned? And I never, I didn't need to coach them after that. They were well on their way. So
yeah.
I don't know what the outcome was. I don't know what the outcome was, but they kind of projected that they would get to like 90 to 100 grand in about 3 years.
Yeah, and I mean, after those first 9 months, at that point, they've essentially done the habit forming hard part of it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they also kind of gamified it, where it's, oh, I've done this much. How much can I do? And once they make it that, whether it's a game, competition, whatever sort of mindset of how far can I reach? And once that's in place, you can let the reins go, and I'm sure they're doing fine.
because it takes somewhere between like 3 to 6 months to realise what you can cut back on, because that's an education in itself. And within that 3 to 6 months, it takes that long to see the evidence of it. You start with, oh, look, we managed to save a couple of £100 this year, this month. But then you get a couple of jobs, and there's an extra, somewhere between an extra £1,000 to £1,500 a month coming in.
Yeah.
And that's getting tucked away. But you're becoming frugal, and suddenly you're saving £500-600 a month as well. Because, no takeaways, no eating out, no processed food. We just prep everything, and no coffee shops, and suddenly people are. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a really monk life. It's just there's no.
Yeah,
it's not pleasant.
Well, it's funny because things to me keep circling back to old lessons that were already known, that seems like our very modern hyper secular society has forgotten and then is rediscovering. Because I mean, essentially what you are helping them do is internalize the biblical lesson of Jacob and Esau of do you want your inheritance now?
Yes.
And just blow through it, or do you want to suffer for a little bit and have a great inheritance in the future?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing of, 2 years of suffering right now will help with a lifetime of enjoyment afterwards. I'll take that bet. And a lot of people have a very hard time saying, I really want Starbucks though today. I really want to, there's that new Netflix show. I mean, I want to watch that because everyone's talking about it.
Yep.
And being able to kind of drown all that out and say like, no, I need to suffer now for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever short amount it is. And then in the future, that's when I will.
I had 2 clients, both men, about their 30s, and contrasting attitudes towards it. And one guy was just like, he was just trying to get himself back on his feet, get himself sorted. And he basically worked out, he used his car a little bit, used the underground a little bit, but didn't, but when it come down to it, did he need his car? No. The underground or the train system would sort him. But then he worked out, I could cycle everywhere. He was just like, actually, I could just, because I predominantly use my bike for work. I predominantly use the tube for work or the car for work. And when he worked it out in terms of, he just sat down, it's like, what is my habits over the last 3 months? And he realised, apart from work, he didn't really go anywhere. That that he couldn't walk or something like that. Everything was quite local. Because, like he said, if something's 2 tube stops away, he said it's probably only a 30-minute walk. He said, and so he worked out. He managed. He sold his car, got about 10 grand straight off. So that sort of basically paid off a credit card and stuff like that. So already he felt he was in pocket. And then it was just like, what sort of bike? And he was going to go really cheap. And I said, well, think about this. This is more of a long-term investment. When you actually, and you're talking like mid-noughties. I said, why don't you spend about £1,000 on a decent, kind of all-terrain type bike that can do kind of, master all things. I said, and buy some decent clothes that's going to see you through the winter and stuff like that. And that's what he did. And he was off and running, and he saved fortunes, and just simply having a lump sum that he could put towards paying off a few things as well meant he had more already in his bank account. And it turned out, look, he was the one that taught me that actually if something comes up that I really need a car, well, that's what hire cars are for. He said, I can hire a car. He said he had something he had to do and travel and take his mum and dad, and £250 he had a hire car for 4 days. He said, yeah, that's fine. He said that was perfect. He said that was less than his car payments. For a one-off. But then I had the opposite, a guy who had a really nice place in London, a 911. He was earning 6 figures, and he was on the verge of bankruptcy. And I was just like, you realise if you sold that 911, you could go and buy a nearly new like BMW M3. So you've still got something nice, something fast. You could sell your kind of like townhouse and just go and get a really nice studio apartment and be virtually mortgage free. I think there was even like, if he would downgrade enough, he could be mortgage free in London. And he just went, yeah, but what would people think of me? Oh, dude, you're earning over 6 figures a year, but you don't have any money. You have less money than me, and you're earning over 6 figures a year. You could you could be flush. You could have like I said, you wouldn't even have to curtail your lifestyle, but you're spending so much money that you don't have. That the equity in your house, the equity in your 911, I said you could get rid of both of them and be close to mortgage free. And you're talking up, he'd be freeing up somewhere between 5 to 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
But what would people think of me? I wouldn't give a shit. For 10 grand a month in my pocket, I would not care what you thought of me.
Yeah. And that's where we were actually looking at a couple different houses before we bought the one we're in. Based on the equity of our last house, there's potential that we could have moved into a spot and been closer to mortgage free. We'd still have a mortgage, but it'd be much lower. And it was very enticing at the same time, knowing our family's growing and having a certain space that we would like to have. It became we obviously can't bat way out of our budget, but we were very tempted by that similar sort of thing of, imagine if you just didn't have a mortgage. Imagine if you didn't have a rent. And I think for anyone which is most people who's living with a mortgage or a rent, it's when you fully kind of internalize that idea of like, wow, I'd be bringing home an extra $1,000, $2,500, $10,000 for some people a month. I think getting over that hurdle of that, you saying, well, what would people think of me? It's, well, who cares if you're now able to save a bunch? And again, it's do this for 2 years. And all that money you're saving, you can go buy the place that you had originally
Yeah.
and then not have a mortgage.
But he could he I swear I I can't remember how much he would have had if he'd have sold his house, because he had a lot of equity in it, because the housing price had gone up and he'd paid a
Hmm.
mortgage for like 7 or 8 years. But I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it was close to enough to get him a studio flat overlooking the Thames in the centre of London.
Which
So right,
I
I
don't know
get it.
if you're.
I get it. You've lost a 3-story, 3-bedroomed house that was,
Mhm.
in a nice part of London. But now you've got a nice studio or 2-bedroomed apartment with a balcony that looks over the Thames in central London. And he was near central, he was central London anyway.
Mhm.
But now you're like back,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's a no-brainer.
Well, especially if I feel like if you're considering downgrading, right, from a three-bedroom to a studio, I'm guessing there's no family involved. I'm
Yeah,
guessing
he's
there's.
single.
Why do
Yeah,
you need a three-bedroom?
because it had a nice. It was in a nice part of London with the right
I
street
mean,
name.
with you have a perfect bachelor pad at that point.
Yeah,
That if he's already in that stage of life, why would he want a three-bedroom? That's just more upkeep,
yeah. But that's
more
what I mean.
work.
But it impressed people, and I just like, oh, Jesus, But hey, don't take
What
financial
we do for
advice
the
off the
opinions of others, right?
well, don't take financial advice off the bankrupt criminal. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
what
I
do
don't
I
know.
know?
There's it's not necessarily financial advice, so it's also life advice of like
Yeah.
what do you need? And that's I mean it's one of the things I've always enjoyed about Socrates is like there's something to be learned from everybody.
Yeah.
Right? There's something I don't know about the farmer who farms potatoes. Like doesn't like just because he's in the dirt every day and he's dirt poor, maybe it doesn't mean doesn't have something some nugget of wisdom to offer me.
Hmm.
And that's where I mean, don't be gatekeeping yourself of like don't trust financial advice from the bankrupt uh,
Well,
fraud committing
yeah, but it is the
individual. But
I work with a guy called Simon who's a neurophysio, and he was saying when he was learning, doing university and doing the rounds in hospitals and stuff like that, the head consultant that he worked under, he said he's seen him once, like in the dining hall, and I think he said it was a cleaner or something came over to speak to him, and she said, "Look, I don't really know anything, but I saw this," and he went, "Take a seat." And he listened to what she'd been seen going on in one of the wards or one of the units or something. And Simon was just like, what she? He was curious, like, what? He said, everybody has a set of eyes that see things differently. It was just that, and he just listened to her for 20 minutes while she told, it's like it was just an observation of what she'd been seeing going on, and yeah, and he said, and Simon said, I can't remember what it was that, but she was 100% right, and he was then able to go back and change something, and he said, like, all the qualified people had missed it.
I mean, there's
But it was just having that ability or humility to listen to somebody and not discount what they were about to tell you.
yeah, and I think especially in today's society, there's such as much as we in the West have want to say we've gone away from class systems. Um, it's
We have
there's
status
I mean there's
systems
a
instead.
clear there's clear classism in status, as you said.
Yeah.
It's this person is beneath me, therefore I will not listen to them. Um, and it's something that I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast. I know we talked about it right before we start
Yeah.
everything, but my daughter's had some health issues and going to see different doctors for her heart essentially. It's I will be the first to say I'm not a cardiac specialist, um, but I mean, I have a master's, so I have a brain in me. But is it perfect at everything? No, but I can see certain things and asking questions of the doctor, like, can you please explain to me why this is the case and not this? Can you explain to me
Yeah.
if there's adverse effect of this over that? Could A be impacting B? Whatever it is. And for the most part, the doctors we've seen have been very accommodating of those questions. But every now and then you'll get someone, and my wife unfortunately has had some terrible experiences with this back east where she's from, when she was growing up, of doctors just dismissing. It's like, no, 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 you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, you need to be able to explain it to me because it's my body, and it's if something's going on with it, I want to know why what you're saying couldn't be, or why what I'm asking couldn't be possible. And it's there's such a status symbol among the medical profession, that it's. I mean, as a teacher, we have a heavy exchange program. We have a lot of international students, and it's especially with the Korean students. There's a huge issue in Korea right now of such high pressure to achieve, especially doctors, that it's worse there than it is over here. Like, no one wants to be a plumber, no one wants to be a garbage man, no one wants to be an electrician, and so there's way too many doctors
Crazy.
because it has this status symbol of like, well, I'm going to go save a life. It's like that's fantastic and noble, but you're you're putting it so high that you're in one act kind of letting society fall apart because now there's no one to do the day-to-day tasks, and you're also causing your own kind of psychological fall because you're having so much pressure to achieve a thing that you think will bring satisfaction. And it's like, congrats, you have MD next to your name. You could be the shittiest doctor who, kills every other patient. It like
Well, that's then
you just having MD doesn't matter.
no, and that's the thing, because the next thing that will follow is once you've got a surplus of MDs, you then get status within the doctors. So if you're not at the right hospital in the right, you suddenly become. The thing that popped in my head is, we have this. I don't know if you have it in America, but that stigma with chiropractors, you're not a real doctor. You know, you know what I mean? And then there's this kind of like this weird thing in the medical fraternity where they just will not. They'll acknowledge osteopaths, but they will not acknowledge chiropractors. It's just like, okay, I don't know enough about anything to understand what the problems and issues are there. And shout out to chiropractors that have helped me in the past, because you know what you're doing as far as I'm concerned. But if you get like too many doctors and too many people trying to become doctors, the process itself becomes a status symbol, because if you're not in the right hospital under the right consultant, well, you're not a real doctor, are you? It's like fighter pilots versus commercial airlines versus UPS versus the guy that just runs a biplane. He's just like, well, you've all got pilot's license. Oh yeah, but I was in the Air Force, and then within the Air Force, but were you in the display team? Were you in the tactical team? Were you, were you Top Gun? Or were you flying the big C9s? And were you cargo? And so it's just like, well, we're all pilots. Well, we're not, are we? Some of us are pilots. Some of us,
Yeah, some of us are more of a pilot. There's a really funny story about the pilot specifically that hits on the point of it. Anyways, a biplane guy is just checking his ground speed, and he was like, Houston, wherever it is, can you give me my ground speed? Like, all right, you're at 130 miles an hour, you're doing great. And then the commercial plane overhears us on the radio, and he wants to one up him, and he does. He says, oh, you're going 300 something miles an hour. Like, all right. And then there's like a F-16 flying by, and like, oh, I'm gonna one up him. And this was all overheard. The story comes from an Air Force guy who was flying a SR-71 Blackbird.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, it's great.
For those that don't know, it's the fastest plane. And so those F-16 guys, like, you're going some insane speed and trying to one up the commercial plane, and then the the Blackbird, who basically just happened to overhear it because as quick as he overhears it, he's leaving that
Yeah.
airspace and he's lower atmosphere essentially. And he says, "What's my speed?" And it's something ridiculous, like 15,000 miles an hour. That it's it's a funny story from this old Air Force guy about hey, be humble about like don't be
Yeah.
trying to one up everyone because there's always a bigger fish. But it really is like every single profession does have that kind of classist status
Wasn't there something in that story where
hierarchy.
the SR, the Blackbird guy, sort of said, "I don't need my speed because I've already left airspace," or something? There was a one line,
It was
something like that, that really
there.
shot.
So in the story, the guy driving, the guy flying the first military plane, which is a F-16 or F-20 something, whatever it is. The guy in the Blackbird basically said, "I know you don't need to ask the ground control because you have the instruments. Like it's a $1 billion plane you're flying.
Yeah,
You have the instruments to test your ground. The only reason you're asking this is to one up this commercial flight." And so that's when he's like, just kind of listening. And like, that's cute. And then this F-16 or whatever says, and he's like, "All right, and I gotta one up him because
right.
you're just trying to be a showboaty dick at this
Yeah,
point."
and that's exactly what will happen in Korean doctors.
Yeah, it's which is
And the worst
it's
of it is, sorry, the worst of it is there'll be a doctor that just wants to be a family practice. That was all his
mhm.
ambition will be, and everyone will look down on him for it.
Well, it's the thing that I think is frightening about it is psychologically, I think you're going to scare away all the good, like not all the good doctors, but all the really, really good doctors who say, "I want to be in this to help someone."
Yeah,
And the pressure of it is going to say, like, "I don't know if I want to pursue this because everything's so cutthroat. It's really high stress that it's essentially going to breed out anyone whose inclination is towards kind of soft bedside manner, and it's going to breed in anyone who has leaning narcissistic traits because they want the status, they want the achievement. So when they walk in the room, everyone's, oh, it's MD.
yeah,
Please tell me what's wrong, and here's what's wrong. Now listen to me. Goodbye."
yeah.
And that's obviously an archetype I'm throwing out there, but it will undoubtedly be the product of the system that they are creating of that high pressure cooker environment, which is really unfortunate. I really wish that we in the West as well, not just South Korea, but adopted a bit more of the Japanese mindset, which I don't know the term for it. They have a specific term for it, like they do with everything. Of it's essentially whatever you are doing, do it as best you can, and for the person, like your job is to serve them in whatever it is you're doing, which is why then you'll get pictures out of Japan, like the there's a picture of the airport of there's a delayed flight and all the flight attendants got out from behind the counter and bowed to the customers and saying, "We're sorry that your flight's
Yeah.
delayed." That I mean, I I've had several delayed flights and I don't think I've ever had one. No one's ever bowed, but no one has ever really, I would say, empathetically apologized. It's always been, "Your flight's delayed. Sorry about that. Here's what you can do. Next." And they call in the next person. And it's kind of like, well, now I'm stuck in Chicago for
Yeah.
3 days. And what do
Yeah.
I don't have the money to do anything. Like, what, like I need to get home for my job, whatever it is. Like, ah, that's too bad.
But it's the same as I noticed
Yeah.
that like I'm trying to think how many flights I've been on that weren't delayed. It's almost become common practice, but
Yeah.
it's the same now. So when they lose your luggage, and
Hmm.
they're just if you kind of contact them too much, they make it apparent that you're inconveniencing them. It's like,
Yeah.
Look, you're not inconvenienced in the slightest. You work in the department that's supposed to find the luggage you've lost. I'm the one that's being inconvenienced. And it's just gone to shit. Everyone's just like, well, if you fly a lot, you lose your luggage. That shouldn't be a standard you accept. You should at least be like, wow, that's probably really bad because you're here for the weekend, and you've now got to go.
Yeah, there's another video out of Japan of luggage handlers, where you can go anywhere, it's just throwing the bags, and there it's again that very internalized mindset of almost empathy of like, this is someone's stuff. I don't know what's in it. It could be the urn of their grandmother's ashes, or it could be a bundle of books. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm going to treat it with reverence and respect like I would want someone to treat my stuff. And it's them carefully placing and moving it along. But actually, I have a funny story about baggage. Losing my bags when I went to Romania for the first time to play soccer. I have all my soccer stuff in my big checked bag. And first mistake, because if they lose it, I'm out of luck. But I was 19 years old, and I'm like, I'll just throw everything in there, and I'm traveling light, and we're good. So I give it to him in Portland, and fly out, land in New York, and we're on a little bit of a layover, and the bags don't show up. And I'm like, all right, this is a great way to start a trip that hopefully would have a long, fruitful outcome. And I go up to the baggage, lost bag individual, and it's my first time in New York. I'm Pacific Northwest kid, just starry-eyed and full of hopes and dreams, and I'm greeted with the most New York accent, reluctant to help individual that I'll do my best New Yorker impression, but I'm like, I don't have my bags. Is there any sign of them? And the guy looks at me from behind the counter. He doesn't really care, it seems. And he goes, well, what'd you lose your bags for? I'm like, I didn't lose my bags. I gave them to your people at the start in Portland, and now they're gone. He's like, well, I didn't lose them. Yeah. Like, well, neither did I, dipshit.
Yeah.
This is your job to keep track of these things. Yeah. We'll look for it. Hold on. It may take a couple of days, but we might find them. It's like, so ended up getting to Romania. Took a 3-hour bus, I think, from Bucharest to Ploiești, and then I didn't have my stuff. And there's anything that's coming in is coming into Bucharest, and so I'm sit there with nothing. And there's a closest shoe size someone had was like a size above, which means I'm playing in soccer shoes that are too big. Blisters are coming up right away. Like, this is a terrible way to start the trip.
I had this, me and my friend Duncan, early days of our surfing. We fly to Fuerteventura as part of the Canary Islands, and we got these 10-foot longboards, and they got lost initially. Then when they turned up, somebody clearly just smashed them into the hold. The front of mine had been destroyed. So we then lose a few more days just getting them repaired. It's just as simple as that. And then anyway, we were there for a fortnight, so we still, and then just as the surfing gods always do, by the time we got the boards, got them all repaired, we end up with 1 day surfing. The next 6 days was flat, and get back to the airport, and we dropped the boards off, and this guy's like, no, we can't take them. What do you mean you can't take them? They're too big to go through the machine. And I'm just like, I don't understand. He said they're too big to go through the machine, and at this point it's just like, you can keep repeating it, mate. It doesn't change the fact I don't understand. I didn't buy the board here. I brought the board in, and I've paid for the board to go back. So I'm starting to get annoyed because this guy's like, well, they don't fit through the machine, and it gets to the point. I don't give a fuck. I want to see my board. Get on the fucking plane. I've paid for it, and I fucking brought it into this country. And he calls security. He calls the police over, and I'm just like, and my mate Duncan's just like, here we go, and he's just like David in his mouth, because I'm not like, at this point, I'm kind of like, I've not lost my temper, but I've dug a ditch big enough that, yeah, okay, I can get arrested. I don't give a shit now because you would be a prick. And and the police come over. These two police guys, and they're like, "What's the problem?" And he starts talking to them in Spanish, and they're looking at me, and I was just like, I didn't buy the boards here. I said, and I flew from the UK. The boards came in through this way, and I'm now trying to take the boards back, and I've paid for everything, blah blah blah. And he looked at the bloke, and he just looks at him. He says, "Well, what, like he's now talking English." He's like, "What's the problem?" He said, "He won't fit through the machine." And the bloke just looks at him and went, "Push him through the damn push him through the damn machine." He said, "But they don't fit." And he went, "Push them through the machine," because it's just a scanner, but you wouldn't be able to scan the whole thing. So he's just like, and he's just like, and he went, "If they don't fit, walk them round. Put his boards on the plane." And I was just like, "Thank you very much, officer. Have a great day." And this is just like, this officer's like, "Are you serious?" It's like, because you could see the officer was like, he's annoyed because you've already taken him off the plane when he landed, so somebody must have put him through that machine for them to be scanned. Do you know what I mean? And now you're saying he understood my dilemma, but I'm going to pause us. Because you and I have been talking for an hour and we haven't discussed the books.
Okay.
And your wife has already pointed out that one of these days we actually need to focus on the books. Right? So
that was her message to you. Yeah.
Yes. And she's correct. She's correct. You know, we need to have a section where, because what I'll do as well is I'll actually, although I'll put the whole podcast out, I will deliberately cut out a section and have a separate another episode where we're just talking about the book from the
that works for me. Yeah.
And because your wife is right, we get on here and we have chatted for an hour. And
I was gonna say, like, I was trying to look discreetly how long it has been. Yeah, it's been about an hour.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do this bit now is going to be just about the books, and so
all right.
Introduce the books, please.
The books, plural. So, if this is the first time watching the podcast with me on it, my name is Martin R. Nelson, and I have now written 2 books in my high fantasy series called the Annals of Tessian. The first book, Children of the Dying Hearth, came out in 2021, I think, 2022. Thereabouts. I sat on that book for quite a while. It was more or less a completed work. I was writing it while I was abroad in Germany, and then I wrote it again really finished it when I was living in Southern California. And the sequel is now out. It came out this last December. It's called The Culling of Souls. And both books essentially follow 6 central characters. They're characters, actually, I have a copy of the second book here. It's there's the cover. You can pose my face. There's also them behind me. If I can do my best Vanna White impression here. The 6 characters are symbolized by the 6 symbols that kind of not summarize their arcs, but deal with them. And some are repeat characters from the first book. And essentially the world of Tessian is world of the Annals of Tessian is high fantasy world where there are 4 continents that are all united by this one major city called the Crux. And within the Crux is a lot of corruption, as you would kind of see with any major city that unites a lot of places. The 6 characters for each book essentially introduce something new about the world while introducing a kind of different point of view for a central theme. This is where I had someone recently tell me that it reminded them of Cloud Atlas, where there's different narrators across time spans and across distances that together they share a central arc. And that the first book really is about the title, Children of the Dying Hearth, which we've talked about on previous podcasts, comes from the idea that sometimes the thing that's holding you back is your unwillingness to get out into the uncomfortable world beyond. You are far more comfortable being in a dying home You're more comfortable being at a fire that's about to go out than you are saying there's a cold world out there. I need to brave it for a better future. And so that first book really deals with, it could be the classic hero's tale. The main character that a lot of people would say, like, this is the main person, is a figure named Tessador, who is really archetypal in a fantasy sense, where it's the teenage boy who is basically told he might be the heir to this lost empire that used to rule over all of Tesserus. And um, he's kind of one that it's it's fun to write because he's really fun to write in the sense that you can really inject so many insecurities to what I see would be the realistic expectations of, if you told a 15-year-old, uh, we were just talking a little bit ago about the different classes and hierarchies within our current society. Uh, if you were to tell a 15-year-old from a low income family, uh, you're in line to be the next president or next ruler of the world or the next bigwig. You're gonna inherit all of the Hilton Empire or whatever big institution you want to say. Um, there's obviously some boyish excitement of like, ooh, look at all these things, but there's also the threats that come with that of, am I even up for this? And so he's very archetypal in that sense. But there's five other characters that all share the same sort of theme of, you need to get out of your comfort zone of, and his is essentially being a servant, get out of the comfort zone that you're in. And for him and the main elf character, it's actually moving distances. It's getting out of what they've known from a life perspective, or a just their background of what they've been. For the elf, it's getting out of the actual geography, because all he knows is his homeland. And through a series of events, he essentially has to leave that homeland, which he's barred from doing because he's only 600 years old. And for an elf, that's really young, but it's for him, it's really fun to kind of juxtapose. Yes, he's old for our standards, and the book actually makes a note of this midway through, that when Tessador, the main boy character, is talking to him and one of his other companions, he's like, yeah, he's 600 years old, but he's still a kid. And that's something that was also really fun to play with as a writer, because we think of, once you hit your 20s, 30s, you should know enough about the world that you can get by. And how could you not know about the world at 600? But if you're an elf that lives for 10,000 years, well, 600 is like being 12, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For other characters, it's the comfort zone is Damien, who's one of the rulers in the Crux. He's playing by the rules all the time. He's a very honorable ruler. He's called the Pentarch of the people because he's one of the five rulers, five Pentarchs, and he's always thinking of the people. He's almost obnoxiously noble in that sense, and his comfort zone is that cleanliness of politics that he's realizing early on he might need to get his hands dirty if he wants to see certain political rivals who are filthy with corruption removed. And so that first book really is dealing with getting out of your comfort zone is the easiest way to start your journey. Um, no, I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. No great hero's journey was ever done in the armchair of their living room.
Yeah.
There's a almost direct reference there to Bilbo Baggins, right? All he wants is his armchair and his books and his fireplace and his tea cakes. And it's this first book is really my attempt to, one, start the groundwork for the fantasy series, but two, point out that it doesn't matter if you're a mixed race individual like Faye, who's one of the narrators, if you're a middle-aged, established individual like Damien, or if you're a kid, um, that we all have a comfort zone, and getting out of it is the only way to take that first step to improvement, to the person you might want to be. The second book, The Culling of Souls, is again, taking a central theme on six characters. Um, Tessador's back, Faye's back, Damien's back. There's a couple new ones in there. Athena, who's another pentarch, who's a dwarf, who's pretty brash. She's got a big beard and a mouth like a sailor at times. Um, the the central theme of this one is there's oftentimes a part of yourself that's holding you back. And we all have a multiplicity of kind of personalities and archetypes living within us. Everyone has that child part that you talked about early on, saying, you know, if there's a vanilla milkshake,
Yeah.
I'm having that vanilla milkshake. Um, Now, I'm not saying the vanilla milkshake's holding you back from anything, but everyone has levels of personalities within themselves
Yeah.
that is it's painfully necessary sometimes to remove part of that. And it's it's the act of where the title comes from, culling your soul. Of as a Latin teacher, I can tell you the etymology of culling comes from the same word for cultivate. But it's you cultivate essentially by excising or cutting out a part that is holding you back. Anyone who's worked in a garden knows you have to prune certain bushes, and if you don't, the bush won't grow as well. It will actually grow in a malformed way, and people are no different. And the second book is really a similar attempt to look at kind of not necessarily six stages of life, but six areas of life through each of those six narrators. That sometimes the thing holding you back is a memory,
Mm.
and you don't need to let it go, but you need to make peace with it. Um, that's actually one of the newer characters who's narrating is Sig. He's one of Tessador's companions, and I he was one of the more enjoyable uh, and far more emotional story arcs to write because his he is totally haunted by his past, and it's something that has carried him through life. And just as most people, if they have a very traumatic memory, it will carry them only so far. But if they want to grow into having a positive relationship, if they want to grow into having a peaceful relationship or a peaceful life, they need to make peace and essentially not, it's again, they're cutting it out in a way that is growing,
Because it's
which is a very kind of counterintuitive thing. I'm cutting this away to grow.
but it's difficult, isn't it? Because when somebody has a traumatic memories, it's the difference between overcoming the fact it haunts you in your day-to-day life as opposed to accepting it's a part of your reality that's behind you.
Yeah.
It's still there, but one has you looking over your shoulder every day and
Yeah.
being afraid to go to bed without the light switch on, and the other is it doesn't have to define my tomorrow.
Yeah. And this isn't to say you have to remove the lesson of it too. And I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with. Is like, if I hold on to this traumatic memory, if I hold on to the hatred that it builds up or the bitterness that it brings up, then this will never happen again. It's like you
Yeah,
can sit with that. You can sit with the bitterness, sit with the anger, sit with the hate. Sound more and more like a Sith at this point, but sit with it and eventually accept it. Doesn't mean then that you remove the lesson of it.
yeah,
You can still be wary of things. You can still, oh, that's a red flag. I should be aware of that. But it doesn't. Your your healthiest path forward is is not to let that emotion guide you. And there's actually, I'll say this and then have you respond. There's a moment in the book where Tessador, who has made it to Firefall, which is this location where there's a group of monks that are essentially going to train him to be this next emperor to help overthrow the Crux. There's some rather emotional scenes while he's there, and one of them, the lead monk, who's really leading his training, says, "This is just my philosophy that I just throw into the book, and it's fully me, and all the reading I've done with it in the past. But emotions in themselves are not good or bad; they are simply windows into the soul,
Yes.
and you need to use that window to learn more about yourself. And once you recognize, like, yeah, I'm furious. And this happens to me. I teach high schoolers, and if anyone's ever dealt with someone who's 15, 16, you're going to get frustrated with them. But recognizing, why am I frustrated by this? And using it as a mirror and a microscope into myself is such a healthier way for me to then grow as a teacher rather than, oh, this idiot won't do his homework ever. Well, I'll just keep failing, failing, failing. Rather than like, why am I frustrated? Well, I'm frustrated because this individual has the capacity to do very well and they're not. So why is that? And then I can explore more of it. Whereas I'm using then that emotion as a window rather than letting it guide me, which is one of the big kind of lessons within the book that each of the characters kind of experiences, that if I want to grow to be the person I want to be, or the person that at one point, say like destiny needs me to be, I need to cut out this part of myself. I need to actually use this to look at myself and say, is this actually helping me? Is that 3 bedroom, 3 bathroom
Yeah.
house helping that individual? Are they saying, this is holding me back from who I could be in 5 years?
Well, because do you remember the Truman Show?
Yeah, yeah.
That was the whole point of the story, was that they deliberately made him nearly drown when he was a child because the show was based on him living on the island. So they created a traumatic event so he would never learn to swim and would always be afraid to cross the bridge. And then on the other side of the island was the sea, and that's how we're going to keep you here. They deliberately created a traumatic event with the understanding that he would never leave the island because the trauma would stop him. His fear of nearly dying again, of nearly drowning, of losing something, is, well, we can now keep you here. And that's effectively what trauma does to us if we don't learn how to live with it.
Yeah, and it. It's something that everyone struggles with,
Yeah.
and it's something that I don't. There's no. I mean, I'm sure people of various religious backgrounds or philosophical mindsets can point to Marcus Aurelius or Jesus or Buddha or whoever they want of like, well, this person didn't. It's like, that they didn't is why you write about them, because it is so exceptional,
Yes.
right? It's no one would give a rip about Jesus if he didn't have the life he had, along with the subsequent death and resurrection. If you believe that, it's the individual that has led such an extraordinary life by example that, yeah, that is worthy of writing about. Holy shit, let me look at this individual. And most of us, I mean, the Christian would say we're all sinners. The Buddhist would say we recognize that all existence is suffering and we need to come to terms with that. It's depends on which philosophy, theology, whichever one you want to look at, but it's your you achieve a higher sense of self, and you achieve a kind of higher, I think, state once you take that mirror, you look at yourself and you say, what is holding me back? And one of the things that I've struggled with completely is doing things like this. Like I hate selling my book, which sucks if I'm trying to sell my book. It's, to me, it's this, I mentioned it at the start of, why am I even like, why should you listen to me?
Yeah.
There's always that self-doubt. And for me, it's the getting out and talking to people like you, meeting other people I've done podcasts with, that it's, well, why should you buy this book?
Yeah.
And there's always that voice saying like, what do you even have to say about this? And so me culling my Soul is trying to cut out that doubt. You can't find a single professional athlete. You can't find a single high achieving individual in many professions I, that has the level of self doubt about their work.
I was having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday on one of my episodes, and with a friend the other day, and it got sparked by a clip I saw of Andrew Wilson on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan it's just like, I can't remember how they got into the conversation, but Andrew Wilson said, the further up the kind of the famous tree he's got, the more stupid they've become. He said, I always thought they'd be more intelligent. They would be and he says, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. And I was just like, that makes no sense. But then I literally realised while listening to this, that still kind of imposes on me with podcasts. As soon as somebody says to me, oh, what, do you want to be like Joe Rogan? It can crush me. It can stifle. Because, well, like, yeah, obviously I do. But I don't want to compare myself to Joe Rogan because he's been listened to by billions of people. I'm still in the thousands. And he can get millions in an episode. I've not even had 1 million in total. And but of course I want that level of podcast success. Of course I do. I've got a podcast I've been working on for 6 years now. And but ultimately I still just want to talk to people. It's just like but at the same time is like you when you're writing the book, you have a full-time job. You have a wife, you have a child, you've got another child on the way. But you have to, well, if I want this to work, if I want this to happen, I have to somehow write the next book. And of course you want it to be the next Harry Potter series, the next Tolkien series. Of course you do. Yeah. What, otherwise, why would you write a book? Well, that starts with, well, I just have a story that I want to tell. But once it's written, you want it to have the potential to reach its full audience. And then you like, and this is the next thing that trips, well, how do I do that next? Like, what do I do next that makes it? But then you have to go and tell people, well, I think my book is better than that one. I think you should spend your money on my book because it deserves your attention. And and when you say it out loud like that, you're like, oh, you fucking arsehole. Who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah.
But you're just like, no, I just desperately believe in what I'm achieving. But unfortunately, I've had no level of success. You know, because if you look at an athlete, like, if it's, I'm going to just choose sprinting because it comes simple. But they can judge their level by personal bests. And then so they might not win or qualify for the next competition or win in that competition. But if they've done a personal best, I'm on track, pun not intended, but I'm on track and we're getting better. And then if they can rise to the occasion at a big competition, they can place in the top 3. Well, that's what leads them to the gold medal in the Olympics. But you and I don't have a way to influence what we're trying to achieve. An athlete can train longer, train harder, train smarter, and personal bests are the competition within yourself. Or you and I don't have the competition in ourselves. We've achieved the competition. We've won. You've written the book. You've written 2 books. The next one will happen. We've already won the competition. Just nobody is there watching us hold up a gold medal. And it's just like stadium's pretty small. No crowds have turned up again. And it's a bit like that for me. I'll put a podcast episode out there, and it's like stadium's looking empty today.
It's kind of one of those islands that no one's allowed to go to. It's like you could be the fastest sprinter there, but no one's no one's turned up watching. Which that's, I mean.
But if you don't lace up those boots and have a go, it's never going to happen. And that's that comfort zone you and I both have to leave every time we do what we're doing. It's the next part of the journey. We didn't win that battle last time. No, but there's still a war. That there's, you just have to,
Yeah.
every page that you've written,
Mm-hmm.
well, you have to dust yourself off and now write the next one. You have to dust yourself off every day and do the next bit. Every podcast I record, well, I have to dust myself off and do the next one. And it may never climb to the top of a number one anywhere. Okay, but if I don't turn up, it's never going to happen. And every time I do turn up, the opportunity for it to happen is there. And that's the only thing I can control. Like the characters in that story, the only thing they can control is the choice they make about tomorrow. And they and
that's, I think for me, it's you have to, every time opportunity knocks, you have to open the door. There's absolutely that, but there's also, I think there is a bit of kind of, I don't know what the exact term would be for it. The thing that comes to my mind, kind of Van Goghism of like, if this doesn't take off in my lifetime, I will still be happy that I did it.
Yes.
And that's the, I mean, it's not a great example to use because he didn't off himself, but it's the, I mean, he suffered from depression his whole life. Oh, it's not working. But I'm not saying that's happening. It's the, I would regret being 85 and not having it.
Yeah. It's
and whether it becomes the next Harry Potter or Game of Thrones HBO special, like that'd be great. I mean, I pray for that. That'd be so fantastic for me, for my family. I mean, I'd love to come on a podcast with you and say like, so we got filming next week in Mallorca or whatever it is.
Christ, you think I wouldn't want that? Can you imagine if I've got the exclusive? Because the first thing I'm going to say is, I want the exclusive podcast because you're being filmed. It's turned into the biggest thing going. Somebody might actually tune in and watch that episode.
It's yours. I'll turn down Joe Rogan.
No, you can do him next.
I can't. I can't right now, Joe. You get your number too.
Yeah. But do you remember? I was thinking about.
I would love that.
Do you when you said?
But at the end of the day, it really is like just having it out there.
Yeah.
To me, is that sense of I have done it. I've finished that race. I want to do the next one, and the next one, the next one. So.
When you were talking about Van Gogh, do you remember Bob Ross, the curly-haired painter?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, more people have watched him now that he's dead, since he stopped painting.
Yeah.
Than when he was alive. More people, when you think of the generations that know who he was, but were not alive when he was doing that show.
Well,
the joy of painting. And it's just like that's literally Van Gogh.
I hope my creative success finds me before I die of whatever cancer he died from.
Yeah, but it's sad, isn't it? You can't. Every now and again, I have somebody on the podcast who is often retired from a profession where they were with famous people. I had a really nice guy on here, and he was the scriptwriter. He wrote all 9 seasons of Xena, Princess Warrior. And he was a really nice guy, like genuinely nice. He's worked with Kevin Costner, Clint Eastwood, everybody. He's completely retired from the industry now. And he's just like, if you in your mind, you're like, oh my God, this guy's, And afterwards, he was just like, I really enjoyed that. And like how you and I first kind of, when we met on the podcast, after we stopped recording, him and I carried on talking for another hour and a half, just like you and I did. and because he was just enjoying a good conversation. And I was just fascinated to listen to him without having to kind of ask him too many questions about famous people. But then there's that part in your head that's just like, he could one day be in a room talking to somebody who does, I did this interview, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I had a conversation with this guy. He was great. You should talk to him. And then, when I think of the rooms he's been in with the people he's spoken to, you could have anybody who, and if they enjoy it. And one of the things he thanked me for, he'd had a really difficult problem. He'd lost a child during his, and although it was in his press pack, I never asked him about it. And and after we'd finished, he thanked me for not asking about it. And I just said, you didn't bring it up. I said, I saw it in the press pack. I said, but you didn't really steer a conversation in that direction. And he said, I hate the fact it's in there, but they insist on it being there. And I just...
there's
But I was lucky because he never steered it anywhere near that direction. I just left it alone.
Yeah.
But another day I could have asked him.
But that's a very intimate thing to press about. And
But
it seems, I don't know.
I think it would be a bit strong for
Yeah.
me to say against his wishes it's in the press pack. But he has said he did say he didn't like it being in there. And
Yeah.
I found out that afterwards, and that was one of the things he was really grateful I never asked him about. And of course, naturally, as we're talking, I didn't ask him about it anyway. I just carried on, just moved on from the conversation. I didn't press him about it at all,
Yeah.
because it's just like, yeah, okay. But that's the sort of thing that in my mind, is like, well, that's what might make him recommend me to somebody, you know. And
Yeah.
but that hasn't happened. But okay, but you when there's a over.
Yeah.
I was talking to a chap last month who he emailed me afterwards. He was like, "Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. It was great." And that was, because he come through a publicist sort of thing, and he still took the trouble to email me. And but during that thing, we were talking about a book he had wrote, and it's been picked up by a film production company in Canada. And I sort of jokingly said to him, "So, well, I want you back on then if that becomes a thing and it becomes a film being made."
Yeah.
I said, I want to talk to you again about it.
Yeah.
He went, "Yeah, absolutely." He said, "I'll come back and talk to you." And I was just like,
Yeah.
Jesus, that actually might happen. But then I've had famous people on and nobody watched it anyway, and they didn't promote it. So I don't. It always reminds me of I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Stereophonics. Do you know the band, the Welsh band Stereophonics?
The name is familiar.
Yeah. So I watched them at O2 in London. A fantastic band. The lead singer has got such an amazing kind of voice. The power behind his voice does not come across on the songs, but live it's like, whoa, that guy doesn't need the mic, But like between every song, he's telling the audience about how these songs come about, and this is an irritating part for me because I can never remember the song he was talking about. But he mentioned that this song, which was their biggest hit off this album, when they were doing the album and everything, there's always stuff left over, and he said then the producer's like, "What's this?" He said, "It's just some shit." He said, "We don't like it. And we're not finishing it, and we're not interested." And the producer was, no, I like that. That's going on the album. They're like, "No, it's not." And the producer's like, "Yeah, it is. We're going to finish the song, and it's going on the album." And it turned out to be the biggest hit of the album. And he said that because what he was talking about, he said, for everything we have, and with this international band, we've got number one songs, number one albums. We still don't know what we're doing. It's the people in the background, the producers, they're the ones, and without them, we wouldn't have any success. And he then also sort of told these stories about when they were an up and coming band. They would, like he said, we sent cakes to like record producers, and we sent and inside would be a tape. You'd find. He said all these gimmicks trying to get listened to, trying to get heard.
Yeah.
And he said, and then they managed to get a stint on Radio 1 or something. Somebody played one of their songs, and Richard Branson phoned them, and he said, and it just turned out the way we actually got heard in the end was just by turning up and singing songs. Every gimmick, everything we tried before and after never worked. Turning up, writing songs, singing songs, and we got heard, and now here we are. And I things like that. I remind myself of things like that. And there was someone, Carlin, he's a history podcast, and he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple of times, and Tim Ferriss, and he said something similar. Dan, is it Dan Carlin, Hardcore History or something? I think it might be. I think it's him. Let me just quickly look it up while I'm talking to you, and I'll carry on the story. And he was talking about sometimes when you're trying to do something, he says, and you can lose. Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. It's a fantastic podcast, and he was talking about, it always seems like there's a wall in front of you when you're trying to do something. He said, and there's this wall that you're always trying to get through. And he
Hmm.
said, you're just waiting for that moment. And he said, and then one day somebody knocks a brick out, and that thing, that person, that organisation, that thing, whatever it is on the other side is there, can suddenly see you, and it can now see
Hmm.
through that wall that's been this big obstacle that you've been trying to get past. He said, but if you don't have
Hmm.
a body of work behind you, no, there's nothing for anybody to see.
Hmm.
And that, so it's just like when I think about, I'm nearly at 250 podcasts, what I really have is a body of evidence that people can see that I know how to do a
Hmm.
podcast, and I know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And and
Well, it's,
that's 2 books. That 2 books is actually, there's a fantasy series here that has in-depth
yeah.
characters, it has journeys, it has a theme, it has a place, and it's going to have an ending, and it can take people to different places to enjoy the emotional ride, that sort of
Hmm.
cliche roller coaster. But the
Hmm.
fantastic thing is, the roller coaster is 3 different rides in 3 different places, and
Hmm.
there's several different seats I can take on to enjoy it at every
Hmm.
moment. And I'm going to be great frightened at the beginning, holding on in the middle, and going to be grateful at the end. And
Yeah.
but without those 2 books behind you on the shelf, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. And it's having the body of work. I used to pitch agents for the first book, and then I kind of stopped for a number of reasons. One, because if anyone who's writing fiction, you just go through the agent list, and the agents essentially are gatekeepers to publishers.
Yes, they are.
You cannot pitch publishers cold. Gone are the days of Stephen King just drunkenly sending it to his publisher and saying, like, "Is this any good?" And they're like, "Oh, we'll pick this up." Uh, and it really is. I think that's where that wall comes in, and it feels very defeating because there's the agents gatekeeping, which then has opened up indie publishing quite a bit, which is great, especially on the surface. The problem is there's so many books that are published every single day. There's the publicist I was working with when we first met told me some outrageous number that I couldn't believe. It was something like 4,000 new books are published every single day. And it then becomes, all right, we're all static. Every one of us wants to be the next Berenstain Bears or Harry Potter or um, Bob Ross, right?
Yeah.
We all have within us this idea of like, I am better than everyone else in this field for this reason. This is the story I want to tell, and you should pick it up over all the others because of XYZ reason. But the static there is it can be very disheartening, especially when it's the easiest ways to mitigate it are going through essentially these editorial reviews that each one of them isn't cheap. Um, which the, the frustration I had with the first one, I had a couple editorial reviews. One was Book Life, which I've done for that one for the second one as well, which I should be getting that back any day now. Unfortunately, it takes 6 weeks or so. And when I ordered it, I was in the middle of buying a new house and moving. Um, so life uh, always interrupts with things. Anyways, Book Life was great with their first review, and it was very clear that they had read it, um, and they had some good things to say about it. I had another editorial review from Kirkus, which it was very clear from their review they didn't account for the metadata that this is not a young adult book. This is classified either as adult or new adult. That's the age range for it. So I've had high school students that I teach read the book. They've enjoyed it. I actually had one this last group of classes ask like, "When's the second one coming out?" Which is
Yeah.
great to hear. And it was just clear that the reviewer for Kirkus, they actually had some plot point screw ups in their review. That was like, why am I paying $700 for you to not read this? Or essentially, and this is what other indie writers have said online, is it was clear they read the first couple chapters and the final couple chapters, which for certain narratives works. When it's a multi-perspective and there's six unique characters, each with their own beginning and their own end and their own,
Mm.
you know, very transformative middles, it's your way to kind of cheat through reading the book doesn't work as well, which then there was a total plot point that was just wrong. That actually I emailed Craig. I was like, this doesn't happen in the book. I don't know what you're reading. But they never really did anything about it. For them, it was you're an indie author who will take your money, we'll read a couple things, and we'll chalk up whatever we want to it.
I think if you look at book promotion now, because it's changed since I wrote my book. It's. I mean, I'm trying to think when I published. I published in about 2012, I think.
Okay.
And since then I've moved on to podcasts. So I mean that's an interesting point, because if the podcast actually blows up, well then I'll probably end up with a really successful book. So it's like, all right, I'll write another kind of really weird spiritual book, because I'll have an audience. But my I don't. When I emailed you, I talked to you about AI films and stuff like that. I don't know if you saw the email, because for $700 somebody would make you a fucking amazing, because I've started trying to learn how to do AI videos and stuff, and you can do a lot of prompts, but you can see that there's this £10 a month gets you.
There's still a learning curve for it.
Yeah, it's a fucking steep one. Do you know what I mean? I was trying to do because when you ask it about, like, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, right? And people can pick me up on this, because I'm just trying. So I already have ChatGPT, and I also use a software called. I use another one called Venice, because you get two such different opposing points. ChatGPT doesn't specifically do video. Venice does have a video option, but when you actually ask Venice and ChatGPT, they use this software, and they'll even give you prompts. And if you ask for, say, a beautiful woman, that's too vague. So you end up actually having to do it needs to have she needs to have this type of legs, has to have breasts. And if you're not careful about this, you need not safe for work software. Right, okay, so you then got to download that thing so that you can use language like breasts. So, because what you have to do, if you don't have all the prompts exactly, you don't get the consistent figurine or the consistent figure, and you're just right, okay, right. So, and all I'm trying to do is learn how to use the software. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not even sure what I can do with it yet, and is it even going to be worth me my time and trouble to, because maybe a David Watson podcast with a figure of David doing something, and an AI version might actually be a good promotion tool. But I ended up with this. I can't remember. I think I misdone the prompt or something. But anyway. She ended up with legs where her chest should be and breasts where her legs should be, and it's just like that's not what I was asking you to do at all. Do you know what I mean? It's just like how do you even think a woman? Because if you just put in woman, you'll get also. So if you want it to be an attractive woman, you have to say a beautiful, attractive woman. If you want it to be an old woman, you have to put, if you want it middle age. And so there's all these prompts, but then people say, well, you've got these apps. Yeah, but the apps already have a pre-configured thing that you pick from. So it's again, so I'm in no position to suggest what is a good way to do it, because I'm still, since that email, I'm still trying to learn how you do it. And I think I'm coming to the conclusion it won't work for me. It's not going to do what I want it to do. But it is, like you say, if you're spending $700 for an organisation to review, then you could probably get an AI expert to do you a 1 minute, 1.5 minute reel of the book, like I said, opening up. The cover of the book opens up. The characters run out of the book, across a battlefield or through a medieval village or whatever, and then jump into the next book. And they could do that to Hollywood standard, probably for less than $700. Or just plough $700 into Amazon advertising in the high fiction genre. And you will probably actually sell some books who will then get reviews. And then it is, I
Yeah.
I think the most success I had with my book was when I just did Amazon advertising in that genre. And I
Yeah.
think because one of the things that, because the book would come under, it has a category, it has a niche,
Hmm.
that's the market you want to hit. And there's
Yeah.
a valid argument that advertising anywhere other than a bookshop is
Yeah.
actually just a scattergun approach. It's
Yeah.
whereas if you actually target a specific market, well, then it's almost
Yeah.
shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah. And I mean, with that being said, it's when I first came on your podcast, it was, you're not all right, here's the next high fantasy
No.
fiction book. Last week we talked about this fiction fantasy book. This week we're talking with Martin Nelson. It's, you're everything. And
Yeah.
it's part of that is one of the things I enjoyed about the first kind of media run I did with Children of the Dying Hearth was it it threw me into the waters of like, what is that media
Yeah.
thing look like? I mean, I'm not on Good Morning America,
No.
but there were, I think, four podcasts. One of them, fantastic podcaster Roger Nichols, who's also out of Oregon, and I reached out to him. Unfortunately, he's got some health issues, so I may go back on with him. I may not. It's kind of up to him and his what's going on there. But it was great. We talked. It was 30 minutes plus, so short compared to our conversations, but it was great for that niche of, we're just talking books. And it was very clear he read it. It was very clear he liked it. It was very clear that this was the kind of the market that I want to be pitching to. And then there were others where I was booked for like morning shows in Indiana. And so I'd wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and have a 5:30, 10-minute phone call with a radio show that is, in terms of the market, that really was very scattergun. But from my working with it, it made it really helped with my elevator speech. It really
Yeah.
helped
Yeah.
with,
Yeah. I,
like, all right, if I really do have 10 minutes to talk to someone and they're asking
yeah.
quick questions, what's your book about? It's like, well, I can go into detail of every six character, but then we're out of time. And so the learning process, that was it was really nice. At the same time, it was one of those things of that felt to me like the training. So now I can pitch the book podcasts. I can pitch, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, people who are like, hey, all I'm doing is fantasy books. Well, let me talk to you for 10 minutes and here's my stuff. Rather than, let me go talk to someone in Cincinnati at 4 a.m. on a morning show while people drive into work. Like, that isn't going to hit a lot of listeners that will really buy the book. So,
But it's interesting because it does fascinate me because once upon a time, because you were mentioning earlier, gatekeepers. Well, publishers were the gatekeepers, and then Amazon knocked that door down. But in doing so, created a huge noise that you have to raise above. Then podcasts come down, and that broke the media being the gatekeepers to what people could hear. But in doing so, created a massive element of noise. But it means that you and I can talk. You and I can create the media. We can create the noise. We just haven't figured out yet how we turn the volume up so that those that want to listen. Well, because it's there's a confusion that people are like, you got to turn the volume up so people can hear you. No, you have to. What you turn up is the volume for the people that want to listen to you, because you're not trying to put people off anything. You're not trying to. I don't want the woman that's interested in bakery. She might not. There's nothing that she's going to like about what I do, maybe. So I'm not trying to attract her in the first place. I'm not trying to catch the fishing dude or the diesel dude. He's just like, look, you don't know. Those guys have their own interests. Those people. It's I'm after people who want to listen to the conversations I have with people. So that's a niche noise in its own way, and I've got to establish where those listeners are and who they are, and they're the random folk. Because I'm not in I'm not a golf podcast. I'm not a football podcast. and but in doing so, it opens me up for the fact that lots of people who write books will come and talk to me, because one, nobody wants to talk to them to some degree if they're not already famous or not already doing something.
Yeah.
I'm always getting first time writers, and I'm also always getting people with inexperience with media work. So it's just like, I'm the perfect guy for you to come and talk to, because I'll talk about your dog. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I think one of it's your podcast is one of, I think, the most humanizing, because it really is.
Thank
It's
you.
the kind of everyman
Yeah.
sort of, anyone can come on, because it's the, have a conversation, and it's I think in a very polarizing world, it is perfect, because it's, we're not sitting here talking. I mean, we've had previous podcast conversations about politics,
Yeah.
and like, if someone wants to talk about that, great. At the same time, it is allowing a space for just human conversations, and I think that's something that is having the hyper focused niche podcast of, whether it's oh, now I'm blanking on his name. He has all the bunch of political guys on there, but
Yeah. Well, Tim Pool,
whether it's politics
Tim Pool, or
or
Tucker Carlson, or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's, great. You found your audience, you
Yeah.
found your thing, and have those conversations. At the same time, and this is something that, so my background, I've said before, is in history. I have a master's in history, focus on medieval. And one of the things that was huge when I was in grad school was, we've heard ad nauseum about the bigwigs of history, whether it's one of the many kings that England has had, or whether it's, issues with Mary, Queen of Scots, or if it's Pope Benedict, or the guys that are writing things and having things written about them, but having the opposite, where what did the everyman do
Yeah.
in 1312? And to me, that's kind of the nice thing about this podcast, is you're talking to the everyman who just is like,
But
how do you balance being a father, full-time job, with
yeah.
writing a book?
But
And
I
this,
genuinely
yeah,
more interested in the
yeah,
guy, the medieval guy in
yeah,
1312 who was the blacksmith, than I am in the king. I actually am.
yeah,
There's a part of me that wants to know how he lives, and
yeah, yeah,
and I was lucky in a way that when I first started the podcast, I allowed my heart to follow what it wanted to do versus what my brain
hmm,
told me to do, because I knew
hmm,
as a podcast platform it would be difficult to get traction, and it would always be a slow growth, because I could have gone
hmm,
down politics, I could have gone sports.
yeah,
I used to have a side podcast that I just did occasionally, and for a long time that had more views off a few clips than this had in its total time,
hmm,
just because I would just react to something that had happened in sports, upload a podcast,
yeah,
and the next day it'd have 5,000 views. But
yeah,
I never, there was something, and I knew I didn't want to do politics. I didn't want to talk about politics,
hmm,
because I'd already realised that nothing I say is going to convince somebody that this is the right way. And all you're going to get is
yeah,
people wanting to come on and tell you why you're wrong.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like, okay, that's just, I'm not going to enjoy that. I knew
yeah.
straight away that if I went down that road, I would be battered and bruised emotionally and mentally within a few episodes. And
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, that requires kind of a lawyerly mindset. Like, I want to go into confrontation, or I want to go in, like you're saying, here's my reaction videos. And it's, my wife has talked about some of my commentary during, whether it's a movie or what. She's like, I think we could get people watching, like, you just stream your reaction to, what were we, I think it was Twilight. She was watching it a while ago, just
yeah,
because it was her childhood, sort of like, this is what I loved growing up when I was 13.
yeah,
And it's, and me, I had to endure that movie years ago, but it's been forever, and I'm just sitting there riffing on it and remarking how ridiculous certain scenes are, and just the acting, whatever. And she's just cracking up the whole time, and
Yeah.
it's those reaction things, like, sure, can be fun, but I think the especially the negative reactions, they get so many reactions, they get so many likes, clips, whatever, that it's feels kind of like the devil's bargain of, like, do you want to do something, like you said, following your heart, of like, I would much rather enjoy this, or
Yeah.
do you want to do what's cheap and easy and quick
I
and
I get
have
to
me just, I'm going to be really angry for the next 5 minutes, and everyone who's also angry with it is going to like it.
I was talking to a gentleman yesterday called Peter, and he's written a book, and he's an ex-Vietnam vet, and some of it about PTSD and stuff. But he asked me, he watched some of my podcasts, and he said, like he kind of said the same sort of thing. It's quite humanizing. And I said to him that I was talking to a lady, and this is why I like it. I was talking to a lady who had, she was the president of the Patrick Swayze fan club, right? And I reached out to her and said, I'd like to have you on the podcast. And purely because my sister's favourite film when I was a kid, and I watched it over and over again because she'd play it every morning before we went to school, just 20 minutes at a time, was Dirty Dancing. She's just obsessed with that film. Right? And I just thought it'd be nice to talk to this woman, because just my sister might enjoy it, and she was a Dirty Dancing fan more than, that was what she loved, and she'd met him a few times, etc., etc. And genuinely lovely woman to talk to. And after the podcast, like you and I often carry on talking and have done, her and I were just having a bit of a chat, and she said, thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for taking me seriously, because often I just get ridiculed. And I thought, that's the most heartless thing in the world. The whole point of my podcast is, why are you passionate about this? That's it. People are interested. I don't care whether it's brass hinges. If somebody's obsessed with them and you listen, right, you'll hear. You'll just... And I had a guy called Stephen on, called Barefoot. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He shot some crazy guy in a church who opened up in a church, and he was called the Barefoot Shooter or something. And he was there on the podcast with his AR-15 showing me. It's like still got the police tag on it, because everybody, I go to these gun shows and people want to talk about it. And he'd run across the street, got his AR-15, chased this guy down, let off a few shots. The guy fled, and he got some guy to stop some bloke, got him to follow in his pickup, and carried on shooting. And when the guy they come to a stop, he pinned this guy down, and basically the guy bled out and crashed at his pickup from the wounds that he'd got from Stephen. And Stephen, devout Christian, devout family, just all American Texas guy type thing.
It's a quintessential American Western story there.
Turns out his whole family traces back to before Texas existed. They were part of the people that did all of that and created Texas and all that. But we're talking, and he's in his gun room, and everything behind him is just guns, and they're the guns.
I saw a clip of that.
The nicest guy. And he's like, if you're ever in America, you've got to come to the ranch. We'll shoot some pigs. We'll barbecue them. It'll be great. And I was like, if I ever get to America again, I'll do that. But he said, saying, but like I said, but another episode, I'm talking to a woman who's the president of the Patrick Swayze Club. But I swear, you put 90% of these people in the room together, avoid politics, and you're going to have the best dinner and the best steaks and the best beers and the best conversation you're ever going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Because you're just listening to what people are passionate about. And
it's there's, I think, a bit of I guess Tolkien's political leanings in there, where it's so funny to me that when you remove the kind of idea of politics, people are so much more human.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there's all sorts of debate online about Tolkien and whether he left, right, whatever. And it's all pretty clear where he leaned in his second to last chapter when it's the Scouring of the Shire, whereas he doesn't like authority, and he has plenty of uh, letters to back this up. It's like the single thing that man is incapable of doing well is leading other men.
Hmm.
And this is everyone like just what is your life? What are you passionate about? And
Yeah.
do that. And let me talk to you about that. And that's why, again, people idolize Hobbiton and the Hobbit so much. It's like Samwise Gamgee loves gardening and plants and all that, and it's great.
Yeah.
And like that's the ideal world. Is like there isn't some
But but
uh,
but people, because this is the funny.
Saruman telling us how to live.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Because he gets to do all of that because there's other
Yeah,
kingdoms keeping Saruman out. So, and
yeah,
people kind of don't understand. It's just like the
yeah,
metaphor there is
yeah,
that
yeah.
heavenly world that he enjoyed, that the
Hmm.
innocence, the just completely
Yeah,
free, we'd have nothing to worry about. Yeah, but
yeah,
on the outer reaches of that earth, people are getting slaughtered, trying to
yeah,
keep out the people that are going to do the slaughtering. And if you let them
yeah.
in, if you don't combine forces, and it's just a metaphor for his experience of the trenches of the
Hmm.
wars. And
Yeah,
it's just like, and people trying to like you say, oh, what are his politics? His politics was First World War, where people
yeah.
died in trenches, where people are literally the scene in the film where they all run towards, like, this is our
Hmm.
last stand. That's the British going over the top.
Yeah,
That's running into the
yeah,
fire. That is literally it.
yeah.
These people, we're going to charge towards each other. They're charging towards
Hmm.
you. You're charging towards them. And then there's the metaphor of if Sam can just chuck the ring back into Mordor, the war ends. Into the fire, sorry, the war ends.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and the I've forgotten the precious guy. I've forgotten what his name is.
Oh, Gollum.
Gollum.
Yeah,
That's literally the corruption of power and what it does to you.
yeah,
On
yeah,
an individual level, and on the big level,
yeah,
what you've got is two opposing forces charging each other because
yeah,
we want what you've got, and we don't want you to break what we've
yeah,
got. And there's people in the
yeah,
world that don't realise that war is going on while people
yeah,
are laying down their lives, and that was the First World War. Because one of the things that was significantly different between the First World War and the Second World War is there was no airplanes flying over Great Britain. So
yeah,
there was almost a harmony going on in Great Britain that people weren't, because they weren't aware, they
yeah,
weren't experiencing what was going on
yeah,
with the trenches. They heard about it when the war
yeah,
was over and they came back, and people don't
yeah,
often understand that a lot of everything was hindsight. It didn't. Whereas in the
yeah,
Second World War, suddenly bombs are getting dropped in England
yeah,
and planes are flying over. So it doesn't matter where you are in Europe, you're now experiencing, like the Germans
yeah,
suddenly experienced planes being dropped, bombs being dropped on. England
yeah,
experienced, whereas before, the Germans in the First World War and the British in the First World War, we're meeting in Belgium, we're meeting in France, we're meeting here.
yeah,
And we're digging
yeah,
trenches and we're going to stand up. So everyone behind those lines, the further away you were, the less you were aware that it was going on. Yeah, it was news,
yeah.
but
And I think that's one of the things that is it's sadly unfortunate that the I think the West overall isn't as aware of how brutal the world is, and it it's I mean for all the issues of the last 60, 70 years where after World War II, where you have the US with the Korean War and
mm,
Vietnam, and if you want to talk about Desert Storm and what, there's absolutely conflicts, but they're so far removed from the everyday American life
mm,
that I think it's actually bred it's created a mindset that is, as ironic as this is, me saying if we just don't do politics, things are a little bit more harmonious. There are people that are so vastly different, and so their worldview is one of such authority or different.
Yeah.
Uh,
This is
I'm trying to
because
get it up more
this is a funny thing.
broad here.
So for reference, Martin and I pretty much bombard each other with videos on Instagram every day, where we are basically demonstrating why a particular brand of females and a particular brand of deity beliefs are actually not supporting each other, whilst one is actually supporting them, and without realizing that if this so-called deity actually did take over control, this very loud, colourful mouthpiece would suddenly be shot dead or stoned to death, or would have to engage in an involuntarily unpleasant physical activity against their will. And I can't, and the politics has got so ridiculous, I can't even say the four-letter word that begins with R because it upsets algorithms. So you have to actually say, like, an involuntary physical activity against their will for the pleasure of someone else, because you're not allowed to say the word. And there's a whole, in every alleged area of every country, whether it exists or doesn't exist, where this deity belief may exist, there is zero human rights for females. And then the said females in Western countries are defending them. And you're like, if these people get in Sharia law, you're fucking screwed. And all I actually have to do is say, look, hey, I'm sorry, can I swear on your book? And we're all good. But you're screwed. And you think I'm the enemy. And but hey.
Well, there's a fantastic real world example of that, and it's when CIA essentially helped overthrow the Shah of Iran, and ever since then, and one of the main supporters of the Ayatollah was far left communist women.
Yeah,
and there's a really sad picture of these two women who are hanging out of a car, and they're waving signs like, "We won, the Shah's out, no more monarchy, no more patriarchy," etc. And one of them had fled shortly after that, and the other one was executed. And getting back to the kind of the overall philosophical argument, it can be a civilization, it can be an individual person. There are people that don't want you to exist.
Yeah.
And I mentioned in previous podcasts with you, Karl Popper and his paradox of tolerance. And living in Hobbiton's great, but if you allow Sauron to come in and turn everything into a factory and enslave you, like, you're being tolerant of your destruction. You need to have those guardrails up and say, I'm not going to allow my civilization to fall.
Well, as you're aware, because I've sent you the videos of it, currently in the United Kingdom, there is an independent inquiry going on into the gangs, right? Being ended by Rupert Lowe, who's an independent MP. That is being completely ignored in the United Kingdom. They're not talking about it. Parliament have even tried to shut up MPs that talk about it. Right? But they're banging on about the Epstein files. They're going crazy about them. It's like, we have it at a local level and a national level in this country. But you're going on about something that was going on in America and Prince Andrew. And it's just like, but it's here. The very thing you're reporting in another country is happening here. Yeah. And it's the same with the Israel-Palestine thing. Absolutely went crazy about that. I think it's the High Court yesterday overturned the government's decision to make Palestine Action a terrorist organisation. They've decided, the High Court has decided it's against freedom of expression, and they've reinstated them as being allowed to protest. Completely silent. Not a single coverage about, was it now 30,000 people killed in Iran? Do you remember?
And meanwhile, someone, a housewife, can tweet something and then get arrested for, was it 6 months?
She did 18
That's
months
not
in prison.
freedom.
18 months in
That's
prison.
not freedom of expression, according to your.
I think last year there was 12,000 arrests for social media posts.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean everybody went to prison.
There's more arrests in
the UK.
in the UK than there are in Russia.
Yeah. And in
Which everyone in the West wants to talk about how terrible Russia is for human rights and freedom of expression. It's like more people get arrested in the UK for what they say online.
Funny thing is, there's a
in Russia.
clip doing the rounds of Putin warning people about Epstein a few years ago. He says, somebody to do with people. Somebody said something to him. He said, "You lot should be looking closer at Jeffrey Epstein." He said, because he hangs around with some nasty people, and he said some bad people. So don't lecture me, because because it's funny. I will have obviously I get a lot of American guests, and I don't know if it's a writing thing, but a lot of them are very anti Donald Trump. And the first thing I always remind them of is, I'm not an American. Do you know what I mean? I'm not an American. And the UK has its own problems. And then I say to them, we had 12,000 people arrested last year for social media posts, and some people are being put in prison. So I don't think your problems are as bad as mine. I don't think you've been locked up because of your opinion yet. Whereas in the United Kingdom, I am now a paid-up member of the Free Speech Union, because it's literally got to the point where I need legal support if somebody is unhappy with what I say. Just because if I say something, I could be arrested, and I don't have the finances to take on the system. So I've joined a union that is called the Free Speech Union. That's how ridiculous the UK is. The fastest growing union, which is normally for workers, the fastest growing union in the United Kingdom is the Free Speech Union. Yeah. And I paid my membership, and I have my badge. It's on the dining table with the letter. It's a nice gold badge with a fist for free speech. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how fucking bad the country that can have a valid argument for creating democracy with the Magna Carta. Yeah. One of the foundation steps, blocks that were laid. Yeah. We're now silenced. How did that happen? Yeah. Oh yeah, the Fabian Society. That's how it happened. Those bastards.
Yeah, careful of that. Now you're definitely going to need the legal protection.
The irony of a union having to go up against effectively an organisation that would support unions. Do you know what I mean?
And that's where things have gotten very backwards. And it's one of the things too that it's when arguing or debating or discussing about anything politics. And this is, I think, the sad thing is it's very clear early on with a lot of people. It's you have a side. Yeah. And it's the side isn't truth or sounds cliche, righteousness, justice, whatever. It's my team. And it's having a discussion with someone about I see a lot of more quite a bit more vehemence on the left towards Trump. So this again, and I have to clarify, this is indicative of that. Yes, it happens on the right towards Biden or towards Obama, and but the gut reaction of people of, even if I say that and they watch this and they say, oh yeah, what about, and then I have to qualify that. Hopefully me qualifying that says, get out of your tribe for a minute. Because as George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. If you're trusting a politician to have your back, you're as green as the grass in spring. They don't care about you. There's nothing to show that they have.
I was recently, because I have zero skin in the game for Donald Trump, but I don't like there's an unfairness. And one of the things I've sent to people recently who I've kind of had these discussions with was the one with the press secretary, with the lady with the blonde hair, and she holds up the New York Times or the Washington Post from 11 years ago, where the guy who was in charge of ICE or whatever is being given a medal for services for deporting 2 million people. And she's pointing out, I don't know why I'm pretending to hold up a newspaper. I don't have one. But she's pointing out that, hey, guys, 11 years ago, you put this guy on your front page as a hero for deporting 11 million people, and you gave him a medal. I think something like that. He got an award. And today, the very same guy, and same with the same operation, you're calling a terrorist. Make your mind up. And all that's different is the administration. I was talking to somebody today, and we got like a little bit heated, and in a nice way, but about the Epstein files. And I just looking it up, and it's just like, well, when Epstein was arrested in July, he was unlived, I think is the phrase you're allowed to use on YouTube. We can't even say the S word. So unlived, allegedly. That was in August, right? And Donald Trump was president. By the time they kind of gathered the files and the emails and stuff like that, that was running into Biden's administration. And there's all this, Donald Trump's trying to stop people having the evidence. And then it's just like, well, no, actually Biden was the one that had all the evidence, and they never released any of the files.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with it. Yeah.
Right? And everyone's going on about these redactions. But when you look into it, and I did use like ChatGPT and Venice AI as well for this, it's some of the issues are actually victims in these files and emails don't want to be named, so they can't release them because it's just like it's not actually okay for somebody that has had been caught up in this trafficking to then be told publicly, because their family might not know. And they will have been interviewed, and they'd have said, I don't want this public. So they have to physically redact those names from the files. So it's not. And don't get me wrong, I have no doubt any opportunity they have to cover up and to attack their friends are going to do it. But there's also ongoing investigations because of these. And because the investigation is still ongoing, we have to redact the information in those files. You can't actually release potential evidence or what could be used as evidence before somebody's even knows there's an investigation against them because they haven't been arrested yet. Because kind of that would halt the investigation. And then there's just issues that might be national security because of politicians. And it's just like, so it's not every redaction is a cover-up.
And I think one of the issues that is coming up, especially, and this is one of the weird political things I've seen, is the left wants to say the right is covering for Trump because he's in the files, and was it Bondi, the AG, was saying she said in the recent hearing that if everything comes out and it's redacted, it's a huge national security issue, and it'll really destabilize the whole system. And the irony is, the left is saying, see, you're covering up for these people. And a lot of what I'm seeing from people on the right is they're saying, we still want them to come out. If the system is so corrupt that there's people across party lines that are doing these heinous things, we want them out. And it's the, and that's where I mentioned that kind of vehemence. I see more of it on the left towards Trump, and I see on the right more towards a system. That is what got Trump elected. It's that the whole thing of, I want to drain the swamp and I want to do all these things. It's like the right is now getting upset with him, of saying, like, you promised us this. We want to see those files, and we want to see all the people that are in them hang. And it's the problem then of national security. Well, what if it's most of them? It's like, that is a problem. A bigger problem, though, is if the people in those positions stay in those positions and nothing happens. Because now you have a disgruntled population with a ruling class that knows it cannot be touched legally, which is a breeding ground for revolution. And that's when you get hyper violent revolutions. And it's either these things are released and these people are prosecuted, or there's very, very bad news in the next 10 years for us.
I may have sent the video to you. If I didn't, I'm not sure where I watched it, but there was a gentleman a historian talking about revolutions, and that they're often actually by people of means who can't get into power. And that's actually what I think. I think this is a perfect scenario for it. They know there's corruption, and they've got the money to challenge it. And they're like, if I can just get a little grasp of proof on that corruption, I'm going to start a revolution. I'm going to drag you down. But I like I said, I was looking at the Virginia Guthrie files, and that actually it was in 2000. I think it was somebody. The court case or something was 2009, but it was in 2014. A federal judge in Florida released the evidence because it had been sealed. And this is what I was saying to my friend today. I wasn't getting upset, was getting animated because of the subject as opposed to the conversation. It was just the subject. I said, what a lot of people don't understand is that some of these files will be sealed in a court somewhere. There will be an agreement that was made. There will be, because part of the agreement that was an issue when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2004 is that was 10 other individuals that had plea bargains. And it's like, we'll cooperate and give evidence as long as we're not named and we're not charged. And some of these files are sealed, and you can't just bounce them out in files to the media because somebody has made a deal with your government to give information in exchange for silence, as in, do what you want with the information I give you because it's valuable, but I'm not named. Well, if you suddenly, fuck it, here we go, here's David Watson, he said this, this and this, and he was involved in this and this, and I've got a deal, I'm going to sue the government and the justice system. And you would only have to do that to one person for them to collapse the justice system, because from there on in, nobody's going to whistleblow. And not only is now every informant you've got suddenly going to go very tight-lipped, I'm going to sue for millions. And in suing for millions, I will be able to bring out the names of all the other people and exactly who I grassed up and what they were involved in. And they're going to sue for millions because they've got the same deal. And before you know it, the Department of Justice is just going to be tied up in lawsuits it can't win because it broke a legally binding contract that it agreed to, which is a big part of an American system, because you don't have that in the United Kingdom. You don't get to do immunity deals or plea bargains. They don't exist. Whereas in America, they're legally binding documents with your Department of Justice or with the FBI or with this. You can do that. You can have these legal agreements. Well, they would all go out the window. And once one is broken, that then gives everybody the right to challenge the others, because American judicial system is really high on examples where courts have said, Martin versus David, Judge so-and-so ruled. And that becomes legally binding as case law. Well, you break it once in America, and you've then right, I can now challenge that because here's the example of it happening. And she's just like, oh, fuck. The system, I think, would implode. So they've got to be with all these emails. And I don't get me wrong, I think that's an amazing cover to protect friends and influential people.
And I think that's the bigger thing is I think most people at this point that I've come across that know about this stuff would rather the system does implode than harbor safely individuals who are committing such acts. That it's if the system is that rotten, then it needs to die, or it needs to be reborn. And I think a lot of this, again, just so much of that kind of protect the powerful would be mitigated if our system just had term limits. And I mean, just that Trump was floating that idea. It's like, please, this is a bipartisan issue that I think everyone's in agreement that we don't want someone who's been a senator for 40 years. This is it, it's a breeding ground then for corruption, for insider trading, for God knows what else that's now coming out in these sort of files. Like, oh, if I can never get prosecuted, or if I just make a plea deal against someone else, I can get out of. I'm totally immune from doing whatever I want, and that becomes, I think, the thing where a lot of people are frustrated. That back to our class discussion, that as much as the doctors want to compare themselves, we have a very, I mean, it's not so two-tier as what's going on right now in the UK, but it is very much a thing of what's happening with
it's an example of what will
these
happen. Cause
elites.
we're having this massive problem at the moment, obviously, with if you say something that even is proven to be factually true, you've already been to prison for it. And people, I mean, I've sent you loads of videos now where the police are knocking on the door because somebody's put up a social media post to say they're going to protest on Saturday at a public march.
Yeah.
And the police are actually knocking on people's doors saying, we hear you're going to that march. And they're like, well, yeah, I'm allowed to. Well, we're just coming around and having a chat with you, making sure, you understand what you're doing and what it means and why you're doing it. And it's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
This is...
Yeah.
And they're like...
It's
crazy. But we got this thing with...
I mean,
we got this thing with...
I was going to say it's perfect for Ingsoc. It's George Orwell's in 1984.
Yeah.
Like, this is what Ingsoc was doing, of like, we hear you're thinking about going here. Just be aware it's a crime if you do X, Y, Z.
Yeah. And these are just...
Have a good day.
Yeah, and this is like, whoa, hang on a second. But we have this problem now because obviously of everything with Prince Andrew and his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Their deep involvement not only with Epstein but with other allegations. But the problem we've got is how far back it looks like it has been shown. The royal family have been covering for him and hiding it. And well, what else have you been hiding? And what else have you been covering up? And what are all these other dealings? And it potentially looks like it's going to get to the point where the royal family are going to just cut him off. And I mean, publicly he's been cut off, but the reason they sent him to Sandringham Estate is because it's a massive estate that he can live on, which is private. It has public areas, but it's by and large private, so he can almost get on with his daily life and just be unaffected. He just, it's a little compound sort of thing where he can live in. Whereas it looks like they might just actually be... The rumours are starting to build that the senior royals have said, we can't protect him now. We've actually got to just let him go to court and actually almost be the ones that insist on his arrest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hardly a punishment for someone to go live on this private estate that has groundskeepers, butlers, everything you need.
Well, what's been said publicly is that he's lost all royal privileges. So he actually, if it's true, for the first time in his life, he's lost his butlers and servants, because he's been stripped of all his titles as well. He will now just be Andrew. You will actually be required to just call him Andrew or Mr. Mountbatten Windsor.
I already would. So.
But in UK terms, if you addressed a senior member of the royal family in that manner, it would be you'd just be asked to leave wherever you were. You'd just be asked to leave. It would be frowned upon. But it'd be interesting. I'm not sure how he would cope, because you think from the day he was born. But people say, like, Prince Charles, he's been caught out of functions where there's been like a kettle, hot water in a tea bag and milk, and he doesn't know what he's doing because he's never made a cup of tea. Everything is made for him. Even that there's it's really hard for people to understand that every morning he gets up and there's a butler there with the clothes he's going to wear for that day. It's already been selected. He just puts them on, and then somebody would do his buttons and ties for him. And he's had that since the day he was born. Every time he turns up somewhere, he's shown to the dining room, and that's where we're eating, and then the food is taken out. He probably has never even opened a bottle of wine. Because why would he? Yeah, somebody does it.
Yeah.
You know, he's
Yeah.
only ever had people in servitude. That's so. Prince
Yeah.
Andrew, do you know what I mean? He probably is. The last time he probably found a kitchen, he was lost.
Well, it's not to. I mean, we probably need to wind down here because
We do,
I've already
we do.
kicked my wife and kid out of the house on Valentine's Day, so I'll be hearing about that from probably not from her, but from maybe from relatives. Um, but if I can just kind of circle back to the book, one of the things that uh, my character Testador is learning is in the second book is how to rule.
Mm.
And one of the things that the monks teach him is that the problem is over the centuries when the empire and the story was around originally, it turned into ruling. And originally his people were created not to rule but to serve. And that's the ultimate role of a ruler is a servant, is how do the people need me? And I think that's something that has become so totally lost with so many politicians that when one does come up, whether you believe Trump or not, about like I'm fighting for you, several million people believe him, several million people don't. I really don't care where you fall, but you have to understand the uh, the impact that it has when someone starts to go against what everyone else has been doing. That it does seem like there is a, oh, are you actually looking out for me? Um, there's a Massey, who's one of the reps in our government. He came out with Epstein stuff, and he's a Republican, but he's going at Bonnie saying like, you need to unredact
Yeah,
these perpetrators. This isn't to protect victims. This is to protect perpetrators at this point, and you need to do your job. And it's another glimmer of an individual who it's like you don't seem to be serving a party. You're serving the people who elected you. And it's that sort of lesson in the book that there's numerous lessons that Tessera goes through that kind of all circle back towards this idea that at the end of the day, you are serving people. Even if that person is someone who hates you, you need to be looking out for their interest if you are the one that's going to be ruling over them. Because otherwise, and I go into this in the book, that what it creates is that mindset of what you're just describing with Charles. It's everything. Everyone's now serving me, and when you have an individual ruling in such a way, they are no longer going to be doing anything for everyone else.
yeah.
So,
And that's where we're going to stop, mate. It's been great. Thank you very
all
much
right.
for your time. I look forward to when we do it again.
Yeah, me too. Thanks again for having me on.
And that was mine. And thank you if you have tuned in and listened to the longest format of this podcast. And I'm going to let you go because time can be precious and just say thank you. Wherever you're from, whatever you believe to, please take care and be blessed. Thank you.